Today on Upfront, a court orders state Republicans to redraw legislative district maps. Why Democrats say it's a win for them. Next on Upfront. Then millions of dollars wasted through highway project cost overruns. I'll ask a Republican leader what they can do about it. Plus, new ideas to reduce violent crime and keep the most dangerous offenders off the streets. And the rapid rise of the new arena in downtown Milwaukee. Today, the Bucks president on the impact of the project and the jobs it's generating.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Upfront. Two Republican state lawmakers say violent crime is rising in Wisconsin, and the state needs to do more to lock up people who continually commit serious crimes. They'll be introducing a package of bills to help reduce the rate of violent crime, and we'll be talking about that in a moment. But first, Friday's big ruling on redistricting. A federal judge ordered Governor Walker and state lawmakers to redraw the state's legislative maps because they were too partisan. 2 months ago, the court said the maps were unconstitutional. And this latest ruling gives the Republican-controlled legislature until November 1st to redraw them. I talked about all of this with Senate Assistant Majority Leader Leah Vukmir just minutes after the ruling came down on Friday. Senator, it's good to have you back on the program.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here.
So, briefly, your reaction to the ruling on Friday on redistricting. What do you have to say?
Well, first and foremost, I haven't had a chance to read the ruling, but what I do know is that one of the parts of the ruling is that they did call on the U.S. Supreme Court to in particular weigh in on this. And so I hope that the Supreme Court does weigh in on this and give direction to the lower courts.
You'd like to see it kind of resolved once and for all.
Yes.
Right. Do you think that you could see maps being redrawn, or are you comfortable, like many Republicans, with the way the maps are today?
Well, we really think that the process that we went through was fair, but again, we'll just let this go through the courts.
I want to talk to you about this legislation that you and Representative Sam Filippo will be introducing. It's called victim prevention legislation. Well, what is this about? Why are you doing it?
Sure. Well, you know, Mike, actual violent crime in the state of Wisconsin and specifically in Milwaukee County is up in a dramatic pace. And we're using very reliable data from the Uniform Crime Reporting data. I mean, just if I could give you a few of these statistics, in 2013 there were 240 homicides. That's a 72.6% increase from 2011. And in last year alone, in the city of Milwaukee, 154 homicides. A variety of other crimes are up: assault, robberies, sexual assault, motor vehicle thefts. This is probably one of the most astounding, up 33% from 2011, up 50% from 2013. When you think about those aren't just data. Those aren't just specific statistics. Those represent real people who've had their lives have been changed forever because they have lost a loved one. They have suffered bodily harm. They have lost property. And so to that end, Representative Joe Sanfilippo and I, along with Senator Van Wanggaard, are introducing a variety of bills that are aimed at looking at the victims of crime. We have an awful lot of focus on the actual perpetrators of the crime, but what about the victims? And we want to focus in on them, not only through a variety of pieces of legislation, but we've also called on the Legislative Audit Bureau to do an audit of the Department of Corrections as it relates to their practices and their policies surrounding correctional supervision, specifically in Milwaukee County.
Is your question that there may be people out under supervision right now who really should be in prison or in jail, and these are some of the folks who are committing crimes?
Correct. The law of unintended consequences. And in the movement among the criminal justice community to look at rehabilitating individuals, what we've done is sometimes we haven't weeded out those that really are the violent reoffenders. And so we need to do a better job of identifying high-risk and low-risk offenders and dealing with them appropriately. And so that's part of what we hope to find through the audit, and then a variety of bills that we will be introducing that will offer a carrot and a stick approach, trying to incentivize those people who believe that rehabilitation is going to work for them and to get them to the system so that they can come out and become productive members of society again. But take off those people who continue to terrorize real people every day. in the city of Milwaukee and across our state.
You mentioned there are a number of pieces to the legislation. One of them deals with carjacking. I know that. What are you talking about doing to address the issue of carjacking?
We're going to raise that penalty and make it similar to the penalty for robbery. And again, this is in our attempt to raise the seriousness of it. I mean, this is something that is happening at astounding rates. As the days go forward, we will be introducing various pieces of this package. We're still doing a little bit of fine tuning.
The one final question on this topic, and the pushback you'll probably get is, boy, our prisons are packed already. We've got a lot of people in prison. If you're talking about tougher sentences for some of these folks, maybe having more people in prison rather than out on supervision. Can we do that in Wisconsin, given the state of the prisons?
Again, it's a two-pronged approach. I'm not saying we're going to give up on the piece of looking at how do we rehabilitate people, and we need to, but we have to sort them out better. And we think that some of that falls in the Department of Corrections and how they are actually making decisions about conditions of people's release.
I want to ask you one quick question before we go about the transportation audit that came out last week, which shows that costs of major highway projects were dramatically underestimated. There's even some talk about roads not being in as good a shape as some of our neighboring states. What does this do to your conversation that you're having in the legislature about a long-term fix for our roads and bridges?
Well, I think first and foremost, what it says to me is that we shouldn't even be thinking about raising taxes and revenues and fees until we take a look inside the Department of Transportation and find those cost savings, because it appears as though that there have been a lot of problems there. And so I think that's the approach that I will be taking as a member of the Finance Committee. I think that everything is on the table. We are going to look at a variety of options. It starts with the governor's budget, and I know that there's a lot of pressure on him now given all of these results, but I look forward to hearing what will come out of his budget, and then we on the Joint Finance Committee will take it from there and have our internal discussions with our families in the House and the Senate, and hopefully come to a resolution, because we just can't let this problem go forward. I mean, I've had these concerns for some time. I voted against $350 million and more bonding last time because I thought, and I was concerned that there were some inefficiencies in the department. So I look forward to getting more information so that we can do what's right for the people of the state of Wisconsin. It's very important that we have an infrastructure for our economic viability.
Senator Leah Vukmir of Brookfield, she is the Assistant Majority Leader in the Senate. It's good to have you on the program.
Thank you, Mike. Good to be here.
Thank you. Coming up next on Upfront, Governor Walker's plan for welfare reform, why one Democratic lawmaker calls it morally unjust for low-income families. And later, a look at the progress of the new home for the Milwaukee Bucks, how the team is trying to create jobs for people who need them. That's when Upfront continues.
Upfront with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company.